All right, last time we flew through decision structures, talked about if statements and case statements, all the different versions, including the if statements in PHP that allow you to have a PHP tag that ends right in the middle of an if statement, embed a bunch of HTML, then have a PHP else tag that ends, a bunch of HTML, and then an end if. This end if you're doing the split if statement, you must have the end if in there. In place of the colons, you can put curly brackets, but if you do, you don't put end, I haven't tried it in a while, I don't think you put end curly brackets in here to start the ends. Right. So it's just, I've been using the colon for the most part, but a couple students accidentally put curly brackets there. If you want to try that, go ahead and then let me know if you put curly brackets before the else. I don't think so.
Can you do an else in there?
Can you do an else if? Probably. I would say you just keep going.
I just
Space.
don't understand why there'd be an end if, use an else if in there, you know what I mean?
There's an end if just to designate that here's the end of it.
Yeah, well, isn't that what the else does? I don't know.
Else does the end of that, but the end if is the end of the else.
I know, well, nothing ever comes after like an else in an if statement.
No, but if there's a bunch of PHP here, when do you stop the PHP? This is basic. I'm sorry. If there's a bunch of HTML here, when do you stop? This basically says this is the end of the else. The rest of this HTML happens regardless. Okay.
It acts like a curly bracket.
And basically that's what these are. Yep.
Okay.
Switch statements, same kind of thing. You can split them up. Otherwise, they're a whole lot like they are in the other languages. And we talked about arrays and fought with those for a while. The new way to declare an array is simply an empty set of square brackets that gives you an array that can dynamically grow. There are ways to make them dynamically shrink, but that's so rare that I don't think I even want to talk about it. To add an element to the array, simply designate its index in square brackets and you can put some stuff in there. These arrays are basically pointers. PHP is typeless, so you can throw anything, any combination in that array, but then you're going to have to deal with it when it comes back out. Okay. You can jump ahead and put in array name 2 after that, put Sheila's name in there, but then you don't have a 1 that's there, but it's null type of thing. Creates it. Again, that would be pretty rare. If you're doing that kind of thing where you're jumping around, it's probably more apt to use a dictionary, or as they're called here, an associative array. You can quickly add something to the end of the array by just designating the array name, empty square brackets, Fred. That puts it on the end. And here's the unset stuff that we don't care about. Associative arrays, kind of same thing. We can declare them using square brackets. This is the old way, though it still works. Array name equals square brackets, and then for every key value pair, you list the key equals angle bracket value, comma, do it over and over and over again. So that's a quick way to initialize an array. Then we started playing with some of these array functions and got some stuff done. We'll play with a few more of those today. This is what we did last time. I actually, in the control cases, when we were ready for the results, remember that all that appears on the form is a text box with Mary had a little lamb in it. Then what we did is we called a function that says take that sentence that came off the form and give me a word list. And then once we got the word list, then we removed punctuation from the word list. Now I finally got around to looking at last year's solution and I did it a little bit differently. A lot of different ways to skin the cat. What I did last year is created one function called create a word list. And everything was done inside of there. Instead of having 3 functions like I was planning on having here. Remove punctuation was probably handy, except it only removes it from an array of words. And the way we wrote it is the punctuation has to be at the end. So it's a bit limiting. Last year, I used just going to the string notes. String replace, except for one thing. There's this one. that lets you replace an entire array of characters with this new character. Notice it says array. So you put an array here of as many characters as you want, like comma, period, semicolon, question mark, any character that I want, and it will replace all of them. So we didn't have to do the preg replace. The preg replace was interesting, kept us occupied for quite a while figuring this lovely expression out.
Wouldn't you still have to, because we didn't replace the whole word with a period?
No,
No, the single characters.
it's not a regular expression, it's just a character. Okay, so what I did last year was this. In string, I think that's the way it works.
That's a lot easier.
Yeah, except they don't gain experience with regular expressions, and that's always good to have. If you have experience with regular expressions, this is only one line long. Granted, it's in a loop, and I had to do it on each individual word, where here I did it in advance. It said find any excess characters, any punctuation characters. I could add dashes, slashes, anything you want now to those square brackets. Anything you find, strip them out. And then explode, and so now I get words that just have the standard stuff in them. So that's what I did last time to remove the punctuation. This is interesting, we'll leave it there, but I'm going to comment out its call. And then I want to carry on from there. Guess we should do a quick echo here. Actually, no, we don't. Yeah, we can do an echo. Oh, come on. Unexpected echo. In control mex line 5. Control mex line 5. Unexpected. I missed a semicolon up here.
Semicolon, yeah.
Forgotten it already. It was a shortcut key to refresh the page. Command R in the Mac. Okay, so here's my stuff. And if I test my form, I should now get this echo without all the stuff, and then there's the words, and we could print R the words by stealing this command down here. But let's just test it to start with. And there's the string is, and notice that all the punctuation is gone, even though it started with it there, and so on. Okay, so the punctuation has been removed. It didn't take out the apostrophe, and I probably wouldn't want it to. So then if I display the words, up here, what? Command C, you know what that means? Thank you. Now it should display the words for me after I've created, while I'm creating the word list. And remember that pre-tag is what makes it look all nice and pretty like this. Questions so far? Okay. Then the last thing I want to do is now create a list of unique words that are found in there and how many times each one occurs. So the way I picture this is as an associative array, where the word itself is the key, and every time we find the same word, we count it. So I want to walk through all the words. Saw this last time. That's the for each loop for walking through. In this case, this is the array. I'm going to grab every value in the array, pull it out. This is a regular array, not an associative array. Okay. Pull it out. This gives me the value of that one piece. What we discovered last time as well is when we do that down here, we tried it with a for each loop. When we do that, if we try to change that word, it does not make it permanent. It's not a permanent change. We can change it, however. I will, because I'm going to do the string case here to make, let's do it right away. I'm going to take the word. I'm going to set it equal to string case. Forget the syntax. I want it to upward or to lower it. Trim value. And of course, it's not in my list. Implode string case compare. That's not what I want. So we'll have to cheat. STR to upper. There's probably an STR to lower as well. So I think I'm just going to go lowercase. Now that's a temporary copy. The way I envision this is it goes through this array, takes out the current word that we're looking at, makes it a different variable called word. I can modify it, make it all lowercase, and then process with this lowercase version, but it does not change my original array. Pretty sure. So now what do I want to do with that? If this word is already in my associative array, now first of all, I need an associative array, so let's do that. $word list equals an array. How is that an associative? Array is an array. It just matters how we key these things now. Pretty sure. So what I said before. Associative arrays. Where'd they go? There they are. Should be able to do it with just a square bracket and then start throwing stuff in it. So what I want to do is see if that key already exists, and that was one of the functions. Array search for a value is key. So array key exists. If array underscore key exists, $word. Actually, what's the syntax? Is it the array first, key exists, find key, and then the array. So there's the word that I want to find in word list. If that's true, it's already there. Then bump up its counter. Word list subword plus plus. I've seen it before, so count it again. Else it's a new word. So I can simply say word list subword equals 1. It's the first time I found it. By adding that key in there, it just creates it. If it doesn't exist already, it creates it. can't do this if the word doesn't exist. So I have to check to see if that key exists and then go through it. And then I want to return ultimately my word list. But before I do that, I think I want to take a look at it. No promises. I didn't study it that hard before class. I was too worried about making sure my XAMPP blew up on the Mac. I had to get it fixed. So I think that's going to work. Makes sense. Let's give it a shot. Save everything. Yep. Mary shows up twice. Mary had a little lamb. Yep, Mary had a little lamb. Fleece was white as snow. Makes sense to me. And then all I really need to do in my results page, because this is going to now send back. And before I do, I want to do one more thing. I'm going to check my words list. Remember, that's my initial words. Those are all still wacky capitalization. So even though I changed the variable word inside my loop, it did not have an effect on the original array, it just had an effect on that temporary variable word. But it did work when I was adding it to my word list. So that verifies what I thought was happening here. And the final thing I want to do before we quit on this example is now use that word list to build a table down here. Underneath here is my word count. I want those numbers that we had up here to look nice and neat down here. Everybody ready for me to leave that?
No.
Okay, then I'll wait.
Remove font, right?
If I wanted to comment out this,
No,
That's
in
correct.
in your control cases. Yes, Reed?
That's correct.
Thank you.
control cases, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I commented out this one because I don't need to remove that. And what I'm getting back now is not from create word list. It's really not words, so I'm going to modify this and call it word list. Before it was the individual words, all the different capitalizations everywhere. But now what comes out of create word list, this is create word list, what comes out of that is the entire list of associative arrays and counters. That's what comes out. I don't need my words anymore. I'm going to leave it there because it has that nice grep stuff in, or not grep, but regex stuff in it. So you can look at that if you need to. Me too, to remember how to do regex in PHP. So I'll leave that there. But this is now what we need to modify. So I'm going to that view. I want to change my results, and notice I already have a table that has a class of no borders, so that must be in my CSS someplace, and it already has headers. Oh, I think I'm going to move that down. Actually, that's a row, so no, I'm not. This is a row with no borders, has the headers word and count, and I wouldn't be surprised as if in my CSS I also have the table centered. Table border collapse, yep. Okay, so the table should center, and it should only be about as big as it needs to be. Nowhere here do I say make the cells a certain surface padding. So all the CSS is already done. So all we really need to do now is write PHP to build the remaining rows. One row for each word that I found in its corresponding counter. All. So here we go. inside the table, I want to put in some PHP. Now I'm going to do this two ways. One way, I'm going to do it all PHP because I think a number of you have seen that that split stuff is more annoying than it's worth. But I also want to show you how we could do it that way. So I'm going to create a PHP tag. And in between here now, I'm going to create rows. But first I need a for loop. For each, now I need a different for each loop. I want to check my syntax because I want the key and the value. I want both. So I'm pretty sure it's going to say for each word list as $word equals greater than $count. I think that's right. I'm going to look it up here in just a second. I think you'll be able to see that while I change pages. Yep. So I'm going into my notes down here a little lower. We start talking about loops. And there it is. Key is the word. Value is the count. Spacing is probably optional. If not, that's one of the first things I'll be suspicious about. So this will give me both. If it's just an array, you can't do that. But if it's an associative array, if you just provide one, you get the value. Okay. So if I had just said for each word list as, it would be $count is what I would say, because it's giving me the value, not the keys. But I want both in this case, which is very common. So now I have those. I want to echo a new row. So I want a table row. I'm going to want to end that table row, so I'm going to put that in there before I forget. And each row has 2 cells. So right there, that creates a row. Could put a \n in there. That way, if I'm looking at the actual source code, each row will be on a line by itself. \n just says in the source code when you print this out. So let's do that. Actually, let's leave it without, see what it looks like. It'll be gross, and then we'll put it in. It'll be a little bit better. And now notice I'm using echo to generate my HTML. So now all I have to do is stick the variables that I want inside my cells. And because it's PHP, I can put the variables right inside as long as I'm using an echo with double quotes, if I remember right. There were some goofy rules. As long as I'm using the double quotes around the outside, I can embed variables on the inside. If you don't like that, you can end the quote and concatenate word, start another quote, concatenate it, build it that way. Pardon me? TD, cell? Table data? Okay. So that's one way to do it. We better test it. Should be able to just stay on this page, and I expect that to show up underneath here. This word count, by the way, is already part of the table. Looks like one word count. No, it's not. It's 2 words in 2 columns, word and count. It's in a cell that doesn't have any borders on it because I have the top of my table that don't have any borders, but inside you'll see here in just a second. But this is already part of the table, always has been. It just doesn't look like it. So I'm just going to refresh this page. And hopefully I took all that nonsense out. Let's try it with the right key. But there's the power of my CSS. And again, I could make each one of these cells a certain width. I could write a line, but you get the idea. Pardon me?
Can you order by?
Can I order by? Can I sort?
Or you'd have to sort the array first.
I'd have to sort the array.
And then
Okay, so I could do that here if I wanted to, or I could do it when I'm generating the list and say alphabetize them. What do you want them alphabetized by? Or what do you want them sorted by? Now, this is a good question. So let's pretend we're going to do that ahead of time.
by the count.
Hmm?
By the count.
By the count, we can do that too. We can do both. I'll show you both. But here, I could do it in here. Now I'm doing some processing inside my GUI. I don't know. I'm sorting. I'm not writing any real code. I'm just calling the sort. It could go right there. Tell you what, before we sort,
Send it.
let me show you the alternate version. Well, that's the easiest way to do this. So that PHP tag is now fairly useless. That's version 1. Here's version 2. In version 2, I want my for loop. But the for loop's going to be in a PHP tag all by itself. Colon. Before I forget, at the end of my loop, I need another PHP tag that says end for each. You do the whole thing, semicolon. And now I can put just HTML in between here. And a little bit of help from brackets putting my end tags on there for me. Then in between here, for minimal PHP, I create another PHP tag and echo the word. And in here, echo the count. I think the other one's a little easier to read, but the other one's got a lot of embedded HTML inside the strings. Trust me, it starts getting ugly after a while if it's complicated. So again, if your end result doesn't look right, is it my PHP? Is it my HTML? If there's JavaScript involved, it could be that. And this one, supposedly, Murak's philosophy is easier for somebody else to do all the HTML, PHP, or HTML without the PHP. They just kind of put a placeholder in here, say $word or word. They just put the word in there, and then we replace the word with PHP to make it work. But 3 lines of code gives me an entire table, and in the future, we'll be pulling data from a database, and we could be getting hundreds of records, and we can throw them into a table. My book list does that. Throws it into a table and generates it with 3 lines of code. No change. Pardon me? On the new version?
Really help.
I think whether you use version 2 or version 1 down here depends on how much HTML there is. If it's small, I would say go ahead with version 1 here. Fairly easy to read.
Can I see
But-
the results?
This one? Now, Justin wants to sort. Again, I could sort here. Before I start my loop, I could do a PHP sort command. Let's put it inside the function, just so it doesn't clutter up my display. The nice thing about doing it out here is I could quickly change it if I want to display and sort by something else. So I'm going inside the model file for the mechanisms. Oh, another place I could put it's in the cases, right? Here's my words. Oh, let's put it there. Sounds even better. Let's sort them here. That way the function just gives me a list. If I want them sorted, I don't want to do it in the GUI necessarily, but here's an intermediate level in the case where I can sort them here. How do I sort? Going back to my notes. Built in. Okay. I can sort on the key. That would be the words. So let's start with that. Case sort, the word list. Done.
You don't have to put it back into the list.
I don't think so. This changes it in place, which is not cool, right? But if you're sorting it, you can always assign it to one other, assign one variable to another. There's an array duplicate here someplace, if I remember right. Array, explode, random, shuffle, sort. Total is set, I guess not. It's probably there somewhere. But it looks like it sorts it in place. Let's find out. The alternative, we'll leave that there. Actually, I don't even need to leave it there. I don't have to comment it out. The alternative is to sort not on the keys, but on the values, and that's just a regular sort. But an associative sort because it's associative array. And I want them most frequently occurring first, so I'm going to do an AR sort. Now I'm sorting it twice. That's redundant, but just so you can see they're there. Second one wins. Is there a way to double sort? I'll leave that to you. I don't think so. I haven't looked that deep to say if this is a tie, like with our 2 4s or our 3 2s there, how do we sort those? I don't think there's a way to do that.
Well, it's sorted in alphabetical order first and then by count, so wouldn't that put the...
No promises. Doesn't look like it because little comes before lamb.
Oh,
If
no,
you
it
need
does.
to, if you need to do a
Actually,
secondary
you did
sort.
it both ways because I counted it out and I have a different result. I have Mary, A, and had, where you have A, Mary, and had. So it changed things by doing.
Did something somewhere, but the fact is neither one of them is sorted. This one's not sorted either as yours by what was there before. So one thing about an associative array is not in any particular order. But yes, you can sort, but if you need to do a secondary sort, you may be on your own writing your own array sort. I don't know, or maybe there's a trick to it that I don't know. I don't really care. Okay. So there's for loops. While loops look like they used to. While condition, there's also a do while condition semicolon, and both of those can be wrapped inside of PHP tags with HTML. Use a for each loop. If the word isn't on the list, add it. Print R. Make it insensitive. Case sort, A sort, AR sort. Add an if statement to the body. If the word list contains Volcker, display a message, otherwise display a different message. Sounds boring. We would just use an if statement, right? No, actually we would have to check to see if what? Is key. If array key exists, Volcker. Same thing we did when we were counting them. If Volcker exists in the array, then do one thing. If it doesn't, do something else. So let's pause there, make up for last time when I rambled on forever. pause there. When we come back, we'll start with Unit 5B, which is basically what we ended up with last time with our weights, but now we're going to validate them. We're going to use what we know about if statements now and start working techniques to do validation.